And of course, the one and only Ichabod Crane.
As someone who has watched the adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad multiple times these past few months, I came to this realization. Brom is the Headless Horseman. I didn't figure this out on my own. My sister mentioned it first and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I do want to mention that this is just a theory. I don't know if Brom is actually 100% the Headless Horseman, but he really fits the bill. Before I get started, all the evidence I've acquired is based on Disney's animated film and only the animated film, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Let's start with the physical evidence. Brom is very strong. Not only is he able to lift and throw heavy things, but his strength in both arms are equal. He mostly uses his left hand for brute force though. You know who else uses their left hand for brute force? The Headless Horseman. Do you know how heavy pumpkins are? If Brom can carry a barrel of beer and smash that barrel of beer open, he can definitely carry a pumpkin with one hand. Brom also knows how to ride a horse, and he owns a black horse just like the Headless Horseman. And I want to point out that Brom has the same body type as the Headless Horseman. You can see that with their arms, which are both muscular. And for those saying that his legs don't match, black is slimming. Now on to Brom's character. He is a very showy type of character. He likes all the attention on himself. He even scares off the guys that Katrina gives her attention to. He also knows how to bring attention to himself. A great example is at the party where he tells the story about the Headless Horseman, which was a very lively performance, I might add. Brom definitely has flair. He's also known to play pranks and jokes, which is a huge trait that comes into play later, especially when it comes to Ichabod, who is such an odd-looking fellow. It's just really easy for Brom to pick on him. Brom doesn't like sharing attention, and you can see this when Katrina starts giving Ichabod more attention than she does to Brom. Once that started to happen, Brom unsuccessfully tried to beat up Ichabod and unsuccessfully came up with plans to prevent Ichabod from being with Katrina. None of that worked, but when he discovered that Ichabod was really superstitious, Brom immediately used it to his advantage, which brings us to Brom's very spooky plan. The town is known for its superstitions, so it would be easy for Brom to have several ghost stories on hand. Ichabod doesn't know about these superstitions since he's new to the town. I think Brom's plan was to scare Ichabod so much that Ichabod would have no choice but to flee from the town. To make this happen, Brom acts out the story as the Headless Horseman really well. This whole scene is why I believe it wouldn't be hard for him to be the Headless Horseman since he was able to play him during the party. All he would have to do is wait for Ichabod to leave the party. Ichabod ends up leaving the party at the witching hour though, which it should be noted that Brom said the Headless Horseman comes out at midnight, so Ichabod could have left at 3 a.m. to avoid any ghouls and ghosts. That means Ichabod could have been the very last person to leave the party. Since 3 a.m. is very late, Brom must have left sometime before midnight to prepare his plan of playing the Headless Horseman, but fell asleep while waiting for Ichabod to pass by. That would also explain the Headless Horseman's late appearance. And because Ichabod left so late, we can also assume that no one else besides Ichabod encountered the Headless Horseman. So now that we know that, here's how it went down, in my opinion. The story at the party, combined with the environment Ichabod was in when he was returning home, really set the scary mood and immensely piqued Ichabod's fear at some point. Ichabod's fear spiked up when Brom made his appearance as the Headless Horseman, and it continued to spike up throughout the whole chase. Brom would lunge attacks on Ichabod but never actually hurt him, since Brom's ultimate goal was to scare him. It's unclear if Ichabod saw Brom when he looked into his shirt, but Brom has black hair, so Ichabod could have seen nothing but black inside the shirt. Brom also could have used cloth over his head like he did at the party, but if Ichabod did see Brom's face, then that position is just straight up weird. Passing through the bridge was Ichabod's saving grace, except it wasn't. Brom followed the rule of the bridge, ending the Headless Horseman's power, but he threw something anyway. The act of throwing that pumpkin through the tunnel proves that the Headless Horseman chasing Ichabod was not supernatural. If the Headless Horseman was supernatural, then the pumpkin would have dissipated when it went through the tunnel because...
But once you cross that bridge, my friend...
Ichabod was hit by the pumpkin, but it wasn't the pumpkin that killed him, it was fright. Death by fright is possible. Strong emotional reactions can trigger fatal amounts of chemicals in your body. For Ichabod, it was a buildup of several things. The story itself at the party frightened Ichabod to the point of not being able to control his motor skills while he ate. The atmosphere of the woods only heightened that fear, and him leaving the party at the witching hour didn't help, which wasn't a wise thing for him to do. When Ichabod realized his surroundings were what caused the scary atmosphere, he began laughing hysterically. He went from hysterically laughing to being hysterically frightened when the Headless Horseman appeared. I watched this film on Disney Plus, and the subtitles themselves state that Ichabod went from nervous to hysterical to maniacal behavior. Ichabod's fear was the highest it ever was when he realized that the flaming pumpkin made it past the bridge where Ichabod was supposed to be safe. This ultimately caused his death by fright. Here's what I think happened after the narrator stops narrating. After throwing the pumpkin, Brom hides out of view and waits. Ichabod drops dead, and Ichabod's horse runs away. Brom comes out of hiding, and upon realizing that Ichabod was dead, Brom panics. His intentions were not to kill Ichabod, just frighten him enough to leave town. In a state of panic, Brom gets rid of Ichabod's body, but forgets to come back and clean up the scene. This explains why Ichabod's hat, along with the pumpkin, was found in the morning. Because of the town's superstitious beliefs, they believed Ichabod was spirited away. I think this is why Ichabod's disappearance is included in the town's ghost stories, or at least in the book that the narrator is reading from. Based on all of that, I think Brom is the Headless Horseman. I don't think Brom is a bad guy. I think it was just a prank gone wrong. It does make for a great scary story though. And with that said,
Man, I'm getting out of here.